Hello, MGTOW. Hello, men. This is Howard Dare. Thanks for stopping by. So, I want to talk about why men can't be part of the female herd. Now, I'm getting into the habit of just coming on here live in the morning. And, some of you might be listening to this and thinking to yourself, well, this isn't really prepared. I can tell that Howard hasn't really, mapped this whole thing out. And that's right. Okay. I'm doing it on the fly. This is ad hoc. This is spaghetti code, right? But I believe in prototyping. Okay. I don't think you have to make things perfect before you create them and build them. I think that you can start on anything that you want to do, and then you can improve as you go along. Yes, indeed. Of course, you want to have a working prototype as soon as possible. That's the idea. Now, I always have a lot of things that I want to talk about. As a matter of fact, I go off subject. I go off on tangents, and I don't think people appreciate it because I don't appreciate it, even when I'm, listening to my own stuff. So I always have to, boil it down because there's so much going on for the men, for the situation that needs to be understood. And it needs to be understood because we have become largely divorced from our own being. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's not. It's not. This is probably the source of many of our frustrations, okay, is that we have become divorced from our own sense of being, of who and what we are. And to a large degree, this has been intentional. Okay, this has been the result of the factioning of identity politics. And it's bigger than it sounds because it's the deconstruction of identity. And it's being done in the name of freedom, okay? So freedom from oppression, right? That's good. Freedom from poverty and starvation, that's good. Freedom from disease, is that good? What if it's a degenerative disease? What if it's a disease that you brought on yourself or that, people have brought onto themselves? Should you then be free from the responsibility of it? Because if you are, then you will indulge in maladaptive behavior. So there are restraints, there are guidelines on how we can operate in the physical world. And to remove all of them and to call that freedom, it's a mistake. To say that people are always free to do what they want to do, well, shall the inmates, run the asylum? Shall you give them that freedom? Because they will harm themselves. Anyway, can you guys hear me okay? Like I said, just coming on, not pre-announcing these things. Why men can't be part of the female herd. Understand that this herd, and it's real, is this continuing factioning of identity. Okay? And the divorce from being, which I didn't want to get into because it's a little too complicated, it has to do with this idea that we are beings in the world. And we look out at the world and we see other things, other objects, other animals, and we think to ourselves, oh, those are beings too. And well, they exist in this world, but they're not like us. Okay, they can't bring context to the whole things. They are objects, and they don't possess this sense of human beingness. They can't conceive of totality, of things. They're just objects. And even if they are living things, like an animal, they cannot conceive of themselves. Animal has no awareness of its own finite nature, right? It's not this potential abstraction of itself looking at itself, okay? So here we are, this thing that can conceive of the universe, looking out at other objects, and then we kind of say to ourselves, and this has been backed up, we are another object, like that thing over there. Or even like a glass of water with water inside of it, okay? But we're even much more than that. And this can go all the way back to Plato, right? A lot of people blame Plato, which I think is funny, but it's actually, valid. So there's this factioning, this splitting off of being, of identity, of who and what we are. And it's a great tool, okay, for dividing and conquering people, for giving people political identity. And it's real, okay? It's real because the women have their own identity. They are, they're female, and they have, all of the, characteristics of giving birth. It just occurs to me that, all of the females throughout all of nature, they have their monthly cycles. And of course, you're not part of that group. But these other types of groups, these identity factions that are built so that we can coordinate our interests and our needs, we identify with them so strongly. We identify with the material world so strongly that we break into these factions, and these factions have real social functions and purposes, okay? The women are grouped together by these actual, real, physical characteristics, all right? So it's not just mental. All of this stuff, okay, is based on objective reality, on physical reality, and man trying to understand physical reality. Okay, so, we think of ourselves as just these objects here in the world. It's very useful to break things down into categories. They do break down on their own into categories based on their true physical characteristics. But it's also a political and social tool. And it's a useful tool, okay? We as a people in the upcoming winter are going to be short of food, right? So this is a useful categorization, isn't it? And the women are going to be particularly, the women will be a little bit warmer in this cold weather because, they've got a little more biological fat going on there. Okay, I hope nobody's offended by that statement, okay? That females generally have a little bit extra layer of fat beneath the skin, okay? So the upcoming winter, they'll be able to be a little warmer. They might survive a little better if, there's no heat. So these categorizations, these factionings, they're a model of the physical universe, of the objective reality, so that we can effectively deal in objective reality, even though we, who are able to conceive of all of this, are not merely objects within this physical reality. We are, we can self-conceptualize all this stuff. It's pretty tricky, but it's pretty cool. Now you have, so you're breaking the people down into their categories, and it's useful. Now you're doing it politically and demographically, and you're inspiring, rising, motivating, informing, influencing them based on their interests, based on their shared identity. You couldn't do this 200 years ago, not in the same way. You didn't have mass communication. You could do it, but a different way. And in modernity, in this modern life, again, so many factions, so many categorizations, so many breakdowns, so many separate objects, and we are merely, when we conceive of ourselves as merely one of them. And these factions that we conceive of, they're based on physical reality. We need them. They're very useful tools. But they also serve a political social agenda of identity politics, which is to say each one of these factions is against the other faction. And that means that you can rally any one faction to your side by saying you share their interests. And you know this, right? Like, you know how this works. This is just almost as simple as peer pressure, convincing somebody to do something that they don't necessarily want to do. So it's this useful tool politically, socially, organizationally, especially if you, like an individual, are smart enough to conceive of a multi-layered process. In other words, you've got to train the youth of your country to use the longbow before you can go to war with France 15 years later. So, long planning, and you can do that, but we don't do that. Okay, modern people, we don't do that. We just exist moment to moment, day to day, in our feelings, with a certain kind of presumption that we are this object. And the females, they are an object. Oh, geez, I've just objectified the females. yeah, welcome. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Welcome to the objectification of the female. So, women have, this group shared set of interests based on their true physical characteristics. They give birth. Oh, yeah, I'm outdoors, man. Anything I can do to come and talk to you guys, you know what I mean, is what I'm willing to do. It's cold out here. That's why you probably are hearing my voice and you're thinking, what the hell's wrong with Howard Dare? Well, it's cold out here. So let's look at the herds within nature, and you can see that while the young males get to be part of the herd, the older males can only be part of the herd in so much as they do not threaten the alpha, the hierarchy, the structure of that herd. Okay? So, as a young man, you are part of the herd. This is why it's so tragic and confusing to the men. Within this herd of, the female group, civilization, the rules, the stringent guidelines that will keep them safe, the young men are part of it. Certainly the children are. And as they grow older, as long as they don't threaten the interests of the group, the herd, they can remain a part of it. And if they'll become a champion of it, they can even, be a part of it and reap benefits of it and live out their lives in it. And as long as they don't become too independent of it, they'll be fine. Well, they won't be fine, okay? But, they can kind of get along and get by. But as soon as the man becomes outspoken or becomes too capable, independent of the group, think about someone like Andrew Tate right now, and, I'm not saying like, I'm agreeing with how, what he does, how he is and what he's saying. No, just the fact that he is outspoken. This represents an existential crisis to that group. And you are, by definition, out of that group and an enemy to that group. And that group will attack you. And this is why you see, the emotional deplatforming, censorship, the eagerness to call anybody who doesn't agree with them a fascist or a Putin puppet, right? Or a misogynist, because you're suggesting something that goes against the herd, that goes against the group. So evil, just straight up, outright. And of course, we can't then have a rational discussion about the issues and what's going on, because the critical question becomes, can the group, the herd, with its liberal freedom intentions, right, social equality, can it brook any disagreement? Can it have any problem? That's why, I put up these thumbnails of like, do you love her? And even if you do or did, does that mean she's perfect? Does that mean she has no fault? So here's our system, our modern system, which has faults. But some people, consider it the greatest good. So if you question it, if there's any aspect of it that you question, then it's not a conversation, it's not a discussion, it's not a debate. Then you're a heretic, you're a blasphemer, right? So it's interesting how this emotional, attack response gets elicited on supposedly rational intellectual subjects, right? And you can understand that this is identifying with the group so strongly. And you can understand that if you've broken down their identity to such a degree, the only identity they have is with the group. But guess what? You can't be part of the group. You're a man. You're male. You can be a part of the group when you're a child. You can be a part of the group as a younger person or somebody who really goes along and champions the group. But as soon as you become the distinctive genetic diversification, which you are, maleness, okay, you're a threat to the group and you're out of the group. So as soon as you actually adopt and exhibit true male qualities, that's going your own way, finding your own way, being your own man, building your own domain. Until you do that, you're not a threat. You know what I mean? You're not an existential threat to the group. And you're part of the herd. But when you can do that, and that's what it means to be male, then you're a threat to the group. And what I mean by that's part of being male is that you and men are genetic diversification. Okay, you are the new element that gets introduced to the group. And this is throughout all of nature. You are genetic diversification. There was a time when all species were female and they reproduced almost exact copies of themselves. And there was very, very limited diversity here on the planet. And then testosterone came around. And we got diversity of species. We men are that diversity. And this scales, this mirrors from genetics into our behavior and our sociology. Because understand that all of this stuff, it's a mirror of the physical laws of objective reality. That's what we're trying to deal with. So we're not building structures that have no basis. Things are not, all of these things have basis in physical because we're trying to overcome and deal with it. So what you are genetically, biologically, is mirrored in our social institutions and in our abstractions of the universe. And there's a fundamental misconception, and it plagues almost all of us, all of modernity, okay? And it has to do with this whole nature of being and this whole idea of thinking of ourselves as objects in a world of objects. And these objects are being, we know that they exist, but we're more than that. Because we can conceive of all of that. Right? The refrigerator doesn't know it's a refrigerator. Right? It doesn't write books about what it means to be a refrigerator. So you are all that, but the world around you is trying to tell you that you're just another object within the world. And that object is a threat to the female group, to the herd. And you're not part of that herd. As soon as you develop your distinct individual maleness, you're not part of it at all. You're a great threat to it. So that's what I wanted to talk about. That's what I wanted to clue you into and inform you of. My thinking on this. There's 1,000 other things I could talk about, coming as MGTOW. But, you can only talk about one thing at a time, right? So Josh D, thanks for stopping by, bro, says, I was labeled a misogynist on a woman's Facebook page for making a single non-threatening, non-insulting comment that challenged her claim that she was constantly catcalled on the street. Well, exactly. Anything that threatens, the dogma, the assumptions of the herd is an existential crisis and threat, an enemy to the herd. But you, as an open, free individual, you are, by definition, by being open to possibilities. So it doesn't even matter what somebody is, putting forth or building or suggesting. Human nature, being itself, which we have become largely divorced from, looks at it and says, oh, here's some other possibilities. Imagine that. Imagine, and look at the structure of religion. Can you question their fundamental tenets? Sure, you can, and you'll be labeled a heretic and you'll be burned at the stake. Okay, so as you become a strong, independent, freedom embodiment of masculinity, boom, you are a fundamental existential threat to this false identity, which divorces all of us from our being. But it is a useful political, social tool. And 99% of us, we're not coming out of it. Shit, we don't want to come out of it. That's a frightening, harrowing kind of experience. But you need to come out of it, okay? Because it's going to open up a world of possibilities for you, and you're going to realize, oh shit, all of this stuff that the world and the people around me have been punishing me for, these are gifts. This is greatness. This is the possibility to reshape and rebuild the world. And if not the world, your world in your image, but not the image of the group, not the image of the collectivized group that's filled with dogma and is always threatened by anything, by even questioning it. See, this is the problem, is that you cannot question liberal, democratic freedom. So if anything is put forth under that guise, under that sphere, you can't oppose it. So you cannot oppose, children making life-changing medical decisions at 8 years old overriding their parents. Because, that's liberal freedom. There's fundamental paradoxes built in here, okay? You are not an object. You are not an identity. You are not a demographic. You are not another object out here like the tree or the car or even, the alligator. You're not like that at all. You can conceive of all of those things. You can abstract all of those things. And none of those things can abstract you. So you're not the same. And yet, much of physical reality, and certainly group mindset, would tell you that you are. And you have told yourself that you are. And now your being has folded in right on itself. And your certainty, your absolute fundamental belief in the truth of your identity, has closed you off to the true nature of your identity, which is questioning, which is abstraction, which is questioning the group. Don't you remember? Think back to when you were a child, right? And they were telling you stuff, and you were like going to school. What's the first thing? You know, what's the first fucking thing that was hanging out in your brain? It was a question. The question was, you know, what's going on? You know, what do you think you're doing? So there was a fundamental understanding of being in that child that we get knocked out of us by people who don't know what the fuck they're doing. Okay? It's called following the followers. So a man has a jewelry shop, and every day, at the same time almost, a working man walks past the jewelry shop and stops and sets his watch based on a big clock that the jeweler has in his shop. Okay? One day the jeweler is outside and the man's coming by and he goes to set his clock, his watch. And the jeweler says, you know, what's going on? What are you doing? I see you walk by every day, you know, setting your watch. And the man says, yeah, I'm the foreman at the assembly plant, you know, down at the end of the block. And I'm in charge of blowing the whistle at 5 o'clock every day, you know. And so I set my watch based on your clock here in the window every day. And the jeweler says, wow, that's very interesting, because I set my clock based on when you blow the whistle at 5 o'clock. Right? So following the followers. So this insight into, you know, your true nature, your being that you have as a child, gets learned out of you because we are all following the followers, and none of our watches and clocks are on time, although some of them are. You then become susceptible to this divorcing from your own identity. It then becomes a tool, political, social, but it's mirroring the physical reality and necessities. It's not evil, but it can go off course to where, you know, now you have this factioning of identity, and now you're going to give, you know, children freedom from their parents, right? Now you're going to give inmates freedom from, you know, the rules and the structure that are actually keeping them alive. And now, as men become strong, independent, domain-building sovereigns of their own lives, as they become that, as they must, they become this existential threat to this overarching system, okay, that's controlling you through the divorcing of your own identity and factioning people off into identity. And some people need it, okay? Certainly children need it. Certainly younger people need it. Certainly women, to a degree, need it, okay? Certainly if they're getting pregnant and stuff like that. But you need to grow out of it. Well, you know, the strong, independent man needs to grow out of it, you know. So this is part of the philosophy of MGTOW. It's deep, right? But it's MGTOW. And I just want you guys to, you know, have some other stuff to kind of like understand what's going on, you know. That's why the stronger and more independent the man becomes, not arrogant, the more of a fundamental threat he becomes, you know, to the herd. And they can't help it. And the herd, in many ways, is blind. Okay, they don't have access to their own consciousness. They don't have access to their own near infinite source of being. Right? I'm sorry to use a term like that. Very limited, very narrow, very dogmatic, easily threatened. So what happens when you start to question freedom and you start to suggest some people are not responsible enough to have freedom? You start to make the world so easy that people become free of the responsibility of their own actions, such that they could live their lives in a maladaptive way and eat the wrong food and do the wrong things and suffer no ill results of it. And where will that lead them? That would be like turning off somebody's pain response. It's like, oh, pain is bad. Pain is evil. So we're going to make it so people never feel pain. And now you would have nothing guiding, your behavior such that, to keep you pain-free. And it scales. Anyway, it's pretty long. I know. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Shogun is here, ladies and gentlemen. He says, Howard Dare, I really need to be more disciplined and stop patronizing restaurants like Hooters and Twin Peaks. I keep feeding the enemy. No, you can't help it, bro. You can't help it. This is part of your biology, This is a salmon swimming upstream. No, I really don't see the conflict that a lot of men in MGTOW seem to think. Men are attracted to women, right? And if the right woman comes up to you and acts the right way, come on. You really think that like most men are going to be like unacceptable? They're not, and nor should they be. Do you like flowers? Sure, you like flowers, nice flower. Some of them are poisonous, and they lose their beauty, and some of them have thorns, and some of them really they're poisonous. Okay, they're very pretty, they smell very nice, and if you touch them, they're poison. Listen, all plants are poison, and they're trying to kill you. It's true. I'm not being paranoid here, not at all. 99.9% of all plants will destroy you. And the only reason why certain animals can eat certain plants is because they've developed a symbiotic relationship and they've adapted to it. But if they eat any of the other plants, they'll get sick and die. So the idea that people are going around eating salads, you got to be kidding. There isn't a single plant out there that doesn't have at least 66 known carcinogens within it. Something like Brussels sprouts has like over 120 in it. There's a reason why if you give kids Brussels sprouts and they put them in their mouth, their face will contort and twist, and they'll spit that stuff out. Because the tongue and the brain knows, it's not good for you. Now, we humans, because we are so smart, well, I shouldn't say that. Because we have the capabilities that we have, we can genetically modify and selectively breed Brussels sprouts to make them sweet and to make them edible. And that's what we've largely done with all of our fruits. Now, they have a ton of other toxins within them. But they also do have some stuff that, is good for us. They also have that. They're living things. They don't want to be eaten. They want to survive. And as living things, they've got some stuff in there that's good for us. But they've got a lot of defense chemicals in there to, discourage us. And I think that, again, we're like too divorced from our physical sense. Yeah, so I think you're fine, Shogun. I don't see a problem with the idea of, strong MGTOW man finding, the female form very attractive and alluring, and the idea that, an attractive woman would start being nice to him and hang around. Why wouldn't he like that? And if she even had the right values and he understood, why wouldn't they be able to have a relationship? I I have women in the comments section, very smart, very wise. I look forward to interacting and talking to them, well, commenting to them from time to time. They give me great insight from time to time. Yeah, and I really appreciate that. And you've got great women philosophers, social media women, very smart. Now, I'm not suggesting, worship, preoccupation. I'm not suggesting that at all. But appreciation is fine. It's fine. Shouldn't be any other way. You certainly don't want to, as a man, you do not want to divorce yourself from your own physical nature. As a matter of fact, you want to embrace that shit and build that shit. Of course, you don't want to have it get you married and get you into a relationship where it gets you put in jail or killed. I'll tell you a true story that just happened to me. It's really tragic. It didn't happen to me. It happened to another young man. Well, it happened to a young man that I recently met. Good guy, early 30s, healthy, strong, fit, smart, good looking, good personality, charming. Women loved him, and he loved the women. And I say that in the past tense because he recently went out to visit a woman that he was, wanting to get together with, and that, he had, probably had gotten together with her in the past, kind of thought of her as a girlfriend, traveled a couple states to get there. And I just got the bad news that, when he got there and tried to get together with her, her boyfriend was there and shot him, killed him, And I just heard about this last night, and I wasn't gonna talk about it, but it's an important, it's true, it's real, it just happened. So, chasing after the women and putting yourself in danger. What can I tell you, man? Don't do it. And I don't want to trivialize it either, but you know that as soon as that sexual urge is gone, you start thinking differently. But the idea that a man would be divorced from that sexual urge, that's not healthy either. The idea, kind of like Jordan Peterson suggests about becoming dangerous, the idea is to have it and then to be able to control it. To not have it at all, that's something different, So here you are, a strong, powerful man, driven by, your hormones and all these forces, but you can control it, you can channel it, you can focus it, and you can use it as the spark for the fire that reshapes your world, reshapes your being. You can use it. We're not going to put it out. I mean, that's just my take on it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm tapping into it. So don't get divorced from your own nature. Don't think that you can live inside of the female herd. Understand that you're your own man, and we can work together and group up and help each other in so much as we agree to do so, but we're not forced to, so voluntary, that's a big deal. Okay. That's a big deal. What we do it because we choose to do it. So let me compel upon you to, if you can, click on the Howard Dare CashApp donation link. Honestly, MGTOW, it's what's getting me by day to day, so all of your help, a little bit here, a little bit there, whatever you can do, it is what's making the difference in my life right now, in keeping me alive and keeping me here. So that's why I'm coming on here, even if I'm unprepared and I'm just kind of, talking in the moment. I'll start making this more interactive with you guys. As long as I don't overtip, I guess it's okay. Yeah, well, it's only money, Shogun, and it's the kind of thing you can get plenty of once you get focused enough, once you get on point enough as a man. I think we'll all do just fine. Like right now, Howard Dare, me, right? Interesting, the abstraction of myself. See, an animal couldn't do that. There's a lot of obstacles and impediments in my way to doing what I do to earn my way in the world. But, you know, going through it will make me stronger and will build within me the very tools that I need to overcome the physical requirements and reality that threaten my very existence. So it's a process that we've got going on here. You know, hard times make strong men. Strong men make good times. Good times make weak men. Weak men bring hard times. So this is also a process right within yourself, you know? So we'll be okay. We got this. And I'll be back on here a little later on, I hope. I'm trying to get back on here. Yeah, what does Ghost have to say? It says, no disrespect or to speak of the dead, exactly. But that was probably what turned on. And yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, you have to know that if the young, you know, if the man had just, you know, physically relieved himself, you know, he would have rethought the whole situation, you know, and taken a whole different approach. I often find myself like giving men advice on dealing with women, and it sounds like I'm giving pickup artist advice, and it's, you know, the furthest thing, you know, from what I'm doing. Don't chase after the women, okay? Let them come to you, okay? I mean, if that's what you want. And, you know, as we were talking about earlier, it's a really natural human male, you know, situation, and you don't want to, you know, get rid of that, you know, like you're not looking to castrate yourself, you know, not chemically, not mentally, none of that stuff. But you don't want to endanger yourself such that, you know, you take so many chances to get together with the woman that get yourself killed or get your life destroyed, you know. And in trying to get together with her, you're going to have to like go along with those herd rules and those herd groups. And that's not really what you want to be as a man. Like if you are that, you know, I have always relied on the kindness of strangers, said Blanche Dubois. You are not Blanche Dubois, headed to the asylum. Although if you were, you know, we'd have to protect your freedoms. And good and strong men, you know, who stand on walls with guns, do that. And we don't want to hear it. And you are one of those men. You are by nature part of the warrior class. That's your birthright. Okay, and it's hard. It's not easy, you know. But we got this, MGTOW. We got this, and I'll come back on later on today. Please go ahead and click on the Howard Dare Cash App donation link, because I really do need your help, and I really do appreciate your help. And to all of you who have been helping out, and there's plenty of you. Well, there's some of you, not enough. You know. Thank you. So let me know what you think about this and other subjects. Maybe suggest some future subjects for me to talk about, because I'm just going to come on here and talk. And please like, share, comment, subscribe, donate, and join me again, Howard Dare, as I plan to have more content for you. Thank you, MGTOW.